Recovery. To the end, where the trees flow ever so gently, for an endless picnic amongst the rivers of tulips and lilacs, with the love of my life. Once a line that I had to prepare for. Once a gesture that I needed to resist. I was ready to die. But unwilling to allow some certain individuals for a life without my presence, as they were willing to endure that train to hell with me well before my stop was planned. We are all invested in so much more of this planned adventure. We deserve a chance for a life worth living. Hello everyone, and welcome to The Impossible. I'm your co-host Austin, and we're in another situation of divide and conquer. I'm out here in beautiful Colorado. It's a lovely day. We just had snow yesterday, and now it's back up to 55, 60 degrees. So, but it left some of the mountains, as you can see in the background, especially behind me. That's actually, that white-capped mountain you see behind me is actually Pikes Peak. So, yeah, out here in Colorado and trying to enjoy the weather. So, today I wanted to talk about recovery. Recovery, and sort of today's subject, I want to break it down into two areas, two different perspectives that I have had on recovery, in terms of my perspective of it in March of 2023, and then how it's gone for me these past few months after my most recent relapse. So in 2023, March of 2023 to be specific, I was 3.5, 4 months off of my first 10 and a half months of treatment. This was my original diagnosis, February 2022, and then my first technical relapse in May of 2022, where I was upgraded to Cleveland Clinic. And that's where, especially there in May for the upgrade, not the hotel upgrade, an upgrade in treatment, and in intensity, I found myself in a situation of being a bit further in the ground, being in question of being itself. So when it comes to where I was perspective-wise, of trying to recover from what I had felt in 2022, in March 2023, I wrote that there, and the line that I was ready to die specifically comes from, I would say, June, July, and especially getting into August of 2022, because I didn't have really a light at the end of the tunnel at that point. May wasn't too bad, but the period of time there, summer going into fall of 2022, I was in a very, very rough spot. Had a lot of negative thoughts. Wrote some very not negative. I had written some very honest, very brutal, borderline masochistic writings during that period. But it was the truth. It was the truth. I was not in a good spot. at all. I was ready to die, and I do mean that. So recovery starting in March 2023, I found myself hoping for something better and not allowing that dark cloud that had formed itself over me to take over me, to completely block out the path forward. And a big help of that was having the community that I had at that point around me. So this was right before Impossible Performance was to form. This was about 2 years into, or 2.5 years into my friendship, rekindled friendship, I suppose, with our founder Matt Hill, and meeting new friends like JD and Paul, and the rest of the family at Monsters who took me in, especially in those times. I had my first powerlifting meet in December of 2022, right before I took a month off to go to Europe, and so having that tight-knit group that I had formed was monumental, I would say, in not giving me a reason to completely give up. I'm not going to put forward that I was in a good spot at that point. I'm not shelving that facade for you to think that you're shopping for here. I was not in a great position. I was in a better position than, like I said, 6 months prior to that, or 7 or 8 months. But I would say, for how I am feeling now, my perspective now, I'm very, very open in admitting that March of 2023, I was not in a good spot. Emotionally, I was all over the place. I could not keep myself unreactive to stressful situations, to almost the form of banter that I had come to love with my close ones, or my close ones, my loved ones, my close friends. And I really didn't have that kind of panache, that sort of confidence that I was building in the end of 2021 leading up to my diagnosis. And so I was just all over the place emotionally, spiritually. I was also I was searching for and studying at that particular point, coming into the diagnosis, and then trying to, in March of 2023, trying to rekindle that, was my study into Norse mythology. More of a humanist, paganistic term, or not term, but view onto the world. And that's where I was at that point, and I'd come to love just the stories and the myths, the tales of heroic feats, but also of humanistic treachery and deception, and having to deal with very harsh realities of life. Also, a little bit of stoicism was in there as well. And the stoicism certainly comes through in terms of, again, trying to help procure and ultimately manufacture the ability to prepare yourself in reaction to the real world and its factors, and preparing yourself to be more sturdy within your own foundations realizing that you can have them and you should have them, and that you're in control of how much wind they can withstand, how tall of a tidal wave it can be ready for. And so that's where I was spiritually in those moments. Physically, I was not in a good spot. Physically, I can remember vividly that I had gone back to eating pretty much what I wanted. I was still eating somewhat clean, but not in the manner that I am today, and not in the manner of which I could have at that point. And that's why I'm a bit critical of that. But also, I was dealing heavily with an addiction, and I had fallen right back into it. I relapsed. I relapsed with it within my first relapse of my cancer treatment, or cancer journey, I suppose. And I'd fallen right back into it, and this had kind of how can you say it went on for 5 or 6 months. And so physically, I was not doing the greatest, not at all. And so, going into the summer of 2023, I found myself working out in Boulder, Colorado, and I absolutely enjoyed it. It was like a breath of fresh air. I'd been working in like St. Louis, St. Louis, and then up in Wisconsin. And so getting back out here to the Rocky Mountains was certainly a big sort of rejuvenating aspect of that summer. And it helped me a lot. It helped me kind of curb that addiction, weirdly enough. But secondly, I was writing a lot more. I had found a couple of new humanistic, I don't want to say pagan, but more earthly tone and earthly derived artists, musicians. And so I started listening to them, a lot more when I came out here, and that was very, very helpful. And just seeing the mountains really does, it calms me, but it also humbles me. It reminds me of the minute sense of our existence on this earth. In a way that, for some wouldn't see it that way. Some would not want to perceive it. Some wouldn't see it that way. Some would not want to perceive it as being that way. But that is how I see it. That is that is a very huge, pun intended. The mountains are very important in my dealings with humbleness and keeping me focused. Those are my larger spiritual but also psychological structures, keeping me in check, keeping me focused, and constantly reminding me that there's always something bigger for me to tackle. There's always another peak to climb up to. So getting out to Boulder was a really nice reset. And it was in Boulder, actually, that I remember it vividly. It was a Sunday evening, and I just gotten back from driving. I think I drove up into the mountains just on the north side of the. They're the Flatirons. They're on the western edge of Boulder. They're called. It's two mountains that are just like literal tectonic plates that just bulged up like everywhere else, but it's literally they're more of a flat nature, but still stupidly, high in elevation. And so it's a really beautiful view, especially when you're driving from east of Boulder into Boulder, because Boulder is a bit of a bowl going up into the mountains. And so when you're east of Boulder, you're kind of at higher elevation, so you can see down into Boulder, but also the Flatirons in the back. It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And so and so in my time there, I was driving there. It was a Sunday evening. Sunday evening, I sit back down in the hotel room. Hotel is in, I think the town's called Louisville. And I had a little bit of neck pain, and I didn't know why. It was on the front. And I felt above my right clavicle. And I had felt the lymph nodes. I had felt 2 lymph nodes, actually, that were the size of small to medium sized grapes, and they were as hard as a rock. So, or glass, I suppose, is what I just knocked on there, but you know what I meant. And I remember it vividly because my heart sank. I immediately had cold chills, and I did not react well at all. My emotions started running wild. My deepest fear at that point had come true, is that I had failed remission. The treatment prior, the 10.5 months of chemo and immunotherapeutic chemo and immunotherapeutic only drugs, 10.5 months, losing my hair, losing all hair, losing feeling in my fingertips, losing a lot of purpose, losing a lot of hope for life, could all come back. It was going to be, at that point, I had seen it as the potential for a relapse in everything good that was going on in my life. Everything. So, recovery in the year of 2023 it's a very touchy subject, but one that I can say was not, I did not prepare well for it. I thought I had found a purpose, and we started Impossible Performance that summer, and I was certainly going gung-ho with it, but personally, inside of me, I was still very, very lost, very off-kilter, and to my interpretation now and my perspective now, miles off course. Miles and miles off course. So my perspective on recovery for 2024, as I've hinted at prior, has evolved tremendously. So recovery for me was able to begin December 10th, 2024, or 2024. And that's because December 2nd through December 7th was 6 days in a row for me of high dose, ready to kill me chemo. I don't need to put it in any softer way. I sometimes feel a bit strange when I tell people about my journey, in that I don't want to frighten them, but it's just the gravity of the situation that the chemo that I went through for this bone marrow transplant, and I want to reiterate this if I haven't said it before, which I think I have, which is why I'm saying that I'm reiterating it. Anyways, the chemo that I went through for those 6 days would have killed me. My bone marrow stopped producing cells, fast replicating cells. And without the stem cell transplant that you receive, which I received on December 9th, 2 days after I stopped the chemo, that was basically my resuscitation. My bone marrow's resuscitation was the stem cell transplant. My own stem cells, thankfully, but like that chemo was a killer's dosage. So it was a lot for me to digest, having to go through the bone marrow transplant. But I would say a preface to the recovery that I'm going through now, I believe it has come to be as successful as it has, partly because starting September of 2023, I was under the potential of having to go through the bone marrow transplant in the winter of 2023, a year prior to when I actually did. And it was because of Matt and myself. We looked and looked and looked and looked, and outside of 3 oncologists' recommendations, 3 incredible people that have taken their time out of their lives to try to help me, regardless of how blunt of an object I may have seemed. And we had gone and wanted to avoid the bone marrow transplant due to its possible and potentially permanent side effects. And so I went and did the CAR T-cell therapy down in Houston. Started treatment in October of 2023, which then prepared me for the trip in January of 2024 for the CAR T-cell therapy. So coming into this bone marrow transplant, I had over a year's worth of knowledge, studying, and somewhat conscious but also subconsciously preparation for it. So I would say that's something to take away from that time, is my recovery for the past 4 months was somewhat the fuel within the reservoir for my recovery now. There was a little bit in there to begin with because of that. Now it had fuel in it also just from my ever-increasing will to live, my ever-increasing realization of purpose, of reason, and a willingness to live, a wanting to live. And so, yeah, I do want to give a slight amount of credit to the Austin that had to become what he became in September of 2023. Something that it's a huge moment there, because there was a huge turning point of realizing that I had not done enough, that I had to go through more, but I had to do more in order for this to be successful. And so for the past 4 months, coming in with a somewhat filled reservoir, a tank of fuel ready to not only go through the bone marrow transplant, but to come out from it stronger than ever. And in those 4 aspects of life, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. It started off rough. December 10th through December 25th, December 26th, going into the New Year's, I felt pretty rough. The first 2 weeks of that, especially the 10th to the 23rd, 24th, were I thought I knew what death's caressing touch had felt like prior to that 2-week span. But I quickly realized that I had absolutely not encountered that lure before. Never have I felt so subdued by a lack of will, by a lack of care. Those were rough days. So as soon as I started to feel better, which again was into Christmas, into New Year's, and into the new year, that is where recovery really started for me. And recovery for me since then has really been a proponent of, well, I guess we can go through the 4 kind of statures. So the first one, emotionally, I had done a lot of reading into Stoicism and some of its philosophers prior to starting the bone marrow transplant, knowing the ferocity and the malevolent nature of it. I knew I needed to prepare myself, and I felt that I did. I prepared myself enough. And then, and I do feel that I've been able to react in the best way possible coming out of that and for these past 4 months. I do feel that I've performed well emotionally. A couple of ups and downs, but to say that I'm to expect any sort of unwavering sense would have been, I think, too much. There are some people in this world that seem like any velocity of wind coming towards their way would not knock them down. Some, those people exist on this planet, I suppose, but that wasn't me, and I wasn't going. I didn't want to put myself under that amount of pressure to not be willing to fall down. The bigger they are, the harder they fall, and I didn't want to fall hard. So I wanted to allow myself to fall if it were going to happen, and know that getting back up would make me stronger. Not bigger, but stronger. And so I gave myself that I gave myself that grace. And so I feel like I've done very, very well for myself in that manner, and it's still evolving. I haven't perfected it, not even close, and nor will I ever perfect it, and that's the whole point. It's the whole point of all these statures, or foundations, I suppose. And that second foundation is spiritually. I still look towards the gods for guidance and for strength, but not in the sense of if they don't give it to me, then I don't have it. It's, for me personally, it's I'm here, and if I need to if I want to read a story of some tale, then so be it. But I know that on this path towards the purpose and the life that I'm wanting and going to lead, that they're all right beside me, and I'm beside them. And I feel there's a very stark contrast between this and others. So spiritually, I've come to terms with a lot of things, and the other half of my spiritual sense is, like I've said, I may have hinted at before, but it's definitely humanistic. It's definitely a universal. We are here, and I have billions of humans on this planet to try to impact. Probably not going to get to them all, but to as many as I can, and as too many as we can. And that's the purpose. That is the atmosphere of which my pathway runs through. That's the environment that we go through. For me. Just, that's for me. It's humans on this planet in this moment, and for the moments to come. That is what I have, and that is more than enough for me. That is perfect, and I'm happy to have that. I'm happy to have the universe as it is, as flawed as it is. Certainly, one aspect that I've realized over this time is that nature's flaws is what my mutation of particular CD proteins within my immune system is. Like, it's a flaw of nature. We are flawed. And again, that's something that I've realized over this time. So we have that spiritual sense. And then mentally I have become more stable because of the emotional stability that I've been able to manufacture, especially over these past 4 months. It's been exponential, astronomical. There we go, pun intended. And also within the spiritual sense, that I do want to admit that it's not, the spiritual sense is not taking up a whole lot of my time. I don't need it to. I don't want it to. I know that I have it, but it's I'm firm with it, but it's also not, it's not some daily injection that I need to be willing to continue on this path. That's not even close to being the case. But those two foundations certainly coming together and becoming more formidable due to my experiences ultimately has led me to a more stable and reliable foundation of a mentality. And the other half, not even half, the majority of it, I would say, is also just from the impossible mindset, the mindset that we've been able to procure over this time, with the business, with our experiences, with the people that we've met, incredible people that we've met. People that I'm ever so grateful for having come into contact with, and and learning from and sharing experiences with that I am eternally grateful for. So the impossible mind has certainly been, I would say, the maybe not a ultimate parliamentary procedure majority, but a vast majority. So that's where mentality and the mental foundation has been solidified within these past 4 months. It's a culmination of that stuff. And then physically, I have decided to chase after my highest and most ultimate potential in terms of physicality. There's a quote by Seneca, and I don't know it word by word by heart, but paraphrasing it is basically, a man, every human, I guess I could actually put it, because it should be for everyone. Every human should know and experience and chase after their highest physical potential, and it should not settle for anything else. And that's something that's a wild paraphrase. So, you can look up the original quote. But basically, I want to chase after the epitome, the highest potential of Austin. What is that? What would that look like? And I've decided to chase after that, and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm eating good. I'm not stuffing my face with calorically dense foods that make no sense anymore. I don't even feel good after eating a lot of that stuff. I still try to enjoy cheesecake, but even a hefty serving of that really it bogs me down. Not like putting diesel in a unleaded petroleum car, but like it definitely feels like putting 85 grade fuel into a sports car. It doesn't. I don't. I just refer to myself as a sports car. I love it. Any Scottish sports cars? I don't know. I'll go for a German sports car, because that's definitely my. The Germans are very detailed and they go over the top, and that's what I love about their cars. Anyways, we're getting off topic. So yeah, it bogs me down, and so I like to eat clean. I like to I supplement a lot now. I mean, that's something that and I'm not upset with myself. I'm not angry with myself because I just simply didn't know. But supplementing has become a huge part of my daily life now, and that has really kind of cleaned up the carbon, disposed some of those bad deposits, really opened myself in a weird, nuanced, physical kind of sense. Like I feel a bit more free. I feel more able to do things when the willingness was there, but the ableness was not. And I've been able to really expand on both. But the ableness has grown more in the past 4 months, only because it started at a lower spot than the willingness. The willingness was there, but now I've been able to kind of bring up the the willingness was there, the ableness I've been able to bring up with it, and so therefore they're kind of both firing on all cylinders right now, and I absolutely love it. So there are my 4 foundations that I've been able to work on, and really I feel so okay with saying this, but I feel so relieved in saying this. I feel rejuvenated. I feel revitalized in that my recovery over the past 4 months has gone very well. Has been extremely impactful for not only how I see the future, but how excited I am for it. And one month in those 4 months, I was I had taken some time off and took a little trip. For a short period of time, I took a little trip over to Scotland, and that was, I would say, 30 to 40% of the total pie. 3 or 4 slices, close to 4, maybe even half. I don't know. Like a blueberry pie, yeah. But it was Scotland had absolutely, it opened a lot of doors for me on the inside, so that I could walk through, see something absolutely stupefyingly gorgeous of what the future could bring, and almost blinding. And that time really helped, and I would love to share that experience with you all on an episode by itself. I need to divulge. Yeah, I'm going to divulge the information eventually, but I need to digest and really collect in an organized manner of what that trip really had done for me. Its impact was insurmountable and unexpected. I had hoped for it to be somewhat incredible, but it turned out to be that times, it was that to the 10th power, to the power of 10, whatever. So that I want to share with you soon, and I'll also have some photos to share with you all as well. I'll go through the days, and we'll do like a nice little photographic timeline of how that went, because it was transformative and transcendental. So in terms of recovery, my perspective had changed dramatically within 18 months. 2 years to 18 months. It went from, I thought I was going down a good path, to I'm so happy that I have evolved and I've realized how incredible the pathway to recovery can be. How impactful, how powerful, and how awesome it can feel. I would like to end this podcast with another poem on recovery that I had written actually this morning. So, and I haven't edited it, and I don't intend to. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Recovery 2.0. Scripted. As if I am bound. Tangled are the webs. Strict is the compass. Burden is this day. Lucid are my dreams. Desolate is my memory bank. Undulating seems for the time. Bearer is my name. Constitutional is my manner. Level are the playing fields. Certain, as if planned. Tomorrow is blinding. Honest to the path, true to the self, dignity to the whole. Here is to our lasting breath. Thank you for listening, and as always, be impossible.